Hello friends. As part of this playlist, we are talking about building enterprise data warehouse using Hadoop ecosystem. And so far, we have seen how we can actually create databases using Hive, and also we have done some data modeling. What are the considerations we need to uh, thought we need to think before creating Hive tables? And now we are talking about extracting and loading data into Sqoop. So from the business, from the actual use case, from EDW perspective, we have seen Hive architecture, which will be a database in the Hadoop cluster, and we have created few tables in both EWS and ODS following uh, certain uh, certain conventions, and also addressing few of the challenges Hadoop ecosystem brings in. And then we are actually talking about how to extract and load data from disparate sources into ODS in Hadoop cluster. As part of that, we have seen Sqoop, which is one of the tools where you can use to connect to relational database and pull data into Hadoop. We have seen theoretically, and then we have started with a demo. And as part of the first demo of Sqoop, uh, I have covered a few important commands like list databases, list tables, and also import all tables. Today I will be talking about import, which is the uh, most important command in Sqoop. Import all tables. As name suggests, import all tables will be used to import all the tables from a given database, and it can be used to get data as part of the initial load. But on daily purpose, using import all tables might not be practical in most of the scenarios. So understanding the import is very important. And first, let me go to the user guide. And if you look at the material about Sqoop, import is the uh, core of it, and also it occupies the largest part of the scope, entire scope. And uh, there are common parameters. Common parameters are common arguments, are primarily to connect to the database, and then there are different aspects you need to understand. We will not be able to explore all the options. So as part of the demo, I will try to focus on the most important aspects, uh, uh, using different combinations of Sqoop import command. So if you go to the syntax, as I mentioned to you, there are common arguments, and common arguments are primarily to connect to the database, passing username and password to connect to the database. And we have used these three: minus minus connect, minus username, and minus password in all our previous Sqoop commands as well, like list databases, list tables, and also import all tables. Okay, that's why they put it in common arguments. Now there are import control arguments. These are means most of them are self-explanatory. I will explain few of them, but you should be familiar with all of them. So minus minus append. So if you want to, if you don't have minus minus append, and if you rerun Sqoop import multiple times pointing to the same directory, it will fail, saying that uh, directory already exists. So if you want to add more files to the existing HDFS directory, then you have to use minus minus append. And then these three are to tell how to which format you should store the data. Default is text file, and we have seen Avro data file as part of import all tables. So you can go back to my previous video to see details about how to import data in Avro format, and how to understand the metadata, and how to use that metadata to create external table in Hive. Similar is the approach for sequence file. Only thing is sequence file stores data in a binary format, whereas the Avro data file will actually store data in JSON format. Okay, and next one is minus minus direct. As the name suggests, it is to do fast path import, and it will not work for all the databases. Only databases such as MySQL or Postgres, which are open source, which have the capabilities to do direct path export from the database. Only only for those databases this will work. For databases like Oracle, it does not make any difference. Okay, and I'm not sure about direct split size. And then the important parameter is minus minus num mappers. So if you want to if you want to pass if you want by default num mappers will be 4. It actually control the number of threads which will copy the data. I have explained more in detail in my previous videos, so I'm not going in further details about that. Split by, again, when there is no primary key, you have to specify indexed column in split by, so that you can actually copy data using parallel threads. If you could not specify split by, then if you could not specify split by, then you have to say num mappers as 1. If for example, if there is no primary key in a table, and if you do not specify split by, and if you try to run the job, it will fail, because by default it will try to read data using 4 threads, and without primary key or split by clause, it does not know how to distribute the data, so it will fail and it will ask you to set num mappers to 1. Okay, and then compress, minus minus compress, etc. And also we will see there are plenty of others also. We will see those the first set of control arguments, and also we will see Hive imports as part of today's demo. So whenever you have a particular requirement to copy the data, first you have to come to the user guide and determine whether there is any whether there is anything that is available out of the box, and you should be using that. For example, if you want to import data into a Hive table, then there is a section importing data into Hive, and you have to be familiar with this while loading data into directories, HDFS directories associated with Hive tables. So we will see a few examples of different combinations of all the arguments which I have highlighted here as part of the today's demo. Okay, so let me go to the demo file. As I have shown earlier, the demo file will be available in GitHub, so you can go to GitHub and get the details. And now I am copying this import command. This is the very basic import command. It only requires connect username, password, source table from the database, retail DB using this username and password, and the target directory, which is a HDFS directory. Okay, so let me, as I'm playing with, I might have the directory already, so let me drop the directory, and then I will paste the import command. So what will happen is when you actually run the Sqoop import command, Sqoop actually generates Java code, and then it will be compiled, and then that Java code will be submitted as a MapReduce job. So let this job finish, and then we will validate whether the data is copied or not, and also we will see how the data is actually copied. Now the data is copied, and you can actually look at the MapReduce counters to see what is going on. So from it connected to the database, and it read actually 6 records, and it has actually written 6 records as part of the map output. As I have explained earlier, Sqoop Sqoop import in the Sqoop 1 will be map only jobs, so you will not see anything related to reducers as part of the output. Okay, so now let us see what is going on under the HDFS directories. So this is the path which we have given for our table to import the data, and you can see as we haven't specified number of mappers, it used 4 number of mappers by default, hence it created 4 files, and we will see the how the data looks. Okay, before coming here, let us see how the data looks in a database itself. So I am connecting to MySQL database, which is retail DBA is the username, and we need to pass Cloudera as the password, and then we have to use retail DB as the database, and let us see how the data looks in the file. So data looks like this. There is a department ID and department name column, and how the data is actually stored in the files, we don't know. It will be proprietary to MySQL. Whereas in when we run the Sqoop import, I'm sorry, I should have run a -cat command rather than -ls command. So I'm killing it. Hadoop fs -cat user Cloudera departments. Cat is the command similar to Linux cat, where you can actually see the contents of the file written to standard out. And now I am actually reading the data. Okay, so the data is copied using comma as the delimiter. So we haven't specified the delimiters anywhere in this basic import script. So by default, Sqoop copies data using comma as delimiter. Okay, now we will go to further commands. We have created retail ods.db database, and then we have created departments table, and let us see how the table looks like in Hive. So I am launching Hive. Because of the resource constraints, the performance of the Cloudera VM is very slow. So keep in mind when you practice, it might be a little bit slower. Okay, it is retail underscore ODS, and if you look at row tables, you can see departments table here. Okay, let me remove data from that directory using this command, user hive warehouse retail underscore ods.db departments. I'm deleting the files so that I can actually run the import again under this. Now let us validate whether there is any data in this table. So there is no data in this table. Now let me run this import command. So there are so if you look at the previous command and this command, the main difference is the last 5 columns, and I'm explaining all the important ones here. So as we are trying to copy data into existing table, we should use append attribute, and we want to reduce the number of mappers because the table is very small, so there is no point in creating 4 files for a 6 record table. So I am reducing the number of mappers to 1. And also if you don't have primary key, or if you don't have primary key, then if you want to copy data, either you have to use split by clause, or you have to specify number of mappers to 1. So there are multiple uses of num mappers. I will not be able to show demo of everything, but I'm telling you a few things that you have to keep in mind. And outdir, there is another parameter called outdir. I will explain the significance of it once this import command is run. So now I am copying the import command. Yeah, and also these two parameters, fields terminated by and lines terminated by, we have to customize it. The reason is, if you look at my departments table properties in Hive, and data is delimited by pipe. And as we have seen earlier, when we did not specify those delimiters, data is copied by comma. So in that case, if you try to run the queries, it will show you incorrect results. So you have to be very careful when you run the Sqoop import, because Sqoop import does not do validation against your Hive structure. So it will just dump depending upon how you specify to import. So in short, what you need to keep in mind is, when you actually do the Sqoop import, the delimiters should match what you have defined in the table, also the file formats, etc. So in this case, the delimiter is pipe, so we have to custom, instead of using comma, we have to change it to pipe. So to change the delimiter, we have to use fields terminated by. So that is the significance of it. Lines terminated by is optional here, because lines terminated by, both the Sqoop and also the Hive table which we are loading into have the same line delimiter by default. So lines terminated by you can specify if you want, or you can ignore. But in case if you want to use custom line delimiter both in Hive and Sqoop, then you have to specify in both the create table command and also Sqoop import command. Now let me run this Sqoop import, and then I will explain this outdir parameter. Okay, let me exit from here. Okay, now the Sqoop import is running. So the Sqoop import is done, and now let us see how it looks like in the file. Okay, so even though we are using Hive table, for now we will just look at the directory directly using regular Hadoop fs commands. Shoot, I'm sorry, I have to copy, and then Hadoop fs ls. Because we specify number of mappers as 1, you will see only one part file here. And then you can actually do the cat command. Oh, I'm sorry, it should be, I should give the file name too. So now if you see, it is showing as a pipe as delimiter. And earlier we ran that query, select star from departments, and it does not return any results. Now let us see what is in there in the table. You can see all the 6 records. Okay, but the delimiter is pipe, as we have seen here. The delimiter in the data is pipe. So that is the purpose of all these important parameters like append, fields terminated by, lines terminated by, and num mappers. And let me explain what is this Java files under outdir. So when you run the Sqoop import, if you do not specify out directory, then for every table which you are trying to connect, it will create this .java file. It is nothing but a plain old Java file. In this case, I'm redirecting those files into Java underscore files directory by specifying out dir. So if you see, it will create a directory, and then if you look at the respective Java file related to the table which we have exported now, it will look like a plain old Java object Pojo with private variables for each column in the table, and then getter and setter methods, and also it implements DB writable and writable interfaces which are related to MapReduce framework. So, and there are certain methods which needs to be implemented when these classes are implemented by this class. So it will have all the relevant methods that are required, and then this Java program will be compiled into a jar file, and that jar file will actually submitted as a MapReduce job to actually copy the data between the database into Hadoop. Being said that, let's move on to the next one. So this is an example where you can actually split by department ID or any other column, preferably indexed column, in case you do not have primary key in the table. Okay, and I'm not going to demo that, but you can use this as a reference for your purpose. And now we will see a few more important parameters like where clause. So far we are trying to import everything from the departments, and if you want to capture delta, departments table do not have the timestamp. As departments table do not have the timestamp, for departments are typically added and they will not be updated quite regularly. So probably getting data using using department ID is already loaded, you might be able to get the delta. In those scenarios, you can use the where clause, and you can specify the department ID, and you can specify the value. In this case, we have already copied 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So anything greater than 7 we want to copy, and if you have more data in our source table, and if you run this command, it will only copy the departments which are greater than 7. And also there are other parameters also, like query. You can actually pass a query instead of table. In that case, if you are trying to pass a query, you have to replace table with the query, and then you have to pass the query which you want to use to copy the data. So there are plenty of options. You have to explore each of them. You need to understand the purpose of each of them, and then you should be able to use them as part of your project. And as part of the this demo, I also want to show how to import table into Hive directories directly, or HDFS directories that are associated with Hive table. And the first one is copying data to the existing table. So we already copied previously, and if you want to overwrite the entire table, like type 1 dimension, if you are familiar with data warehousing concepts, type 1 dimensions reflect the structure of the source table always. So and most of the dimension tables will be small tables, so you might be able to afford overwrite at regular intervals. So in that case, you can actually use the combination of Hive import with Hive overwrite, where this Hive table departments will be replaced with the source data again. Okay, so now let me run this command first. Okay, earlier all the parameters that are covered are related to the source system, and now our source database, like query, where clause, split by num mappers, all of them are related to the source database, how you should pull the data from the source database. Now we are actually trying to manipulate the target system in the sense Hadoop. Hive is nothing but a logical file system on top of Hadoop, There is existing file, that's why it failed, and sorry, existing directory. So when you actually do Hive import, it will try to copy file to intermediate directory location, which matches your slash. Let me show you the direct location. This is the directory location, slash user slash cloudera slash departments. So slash user is standard directory. Under that, whatever user you are trying to use to import, whatever user OS user you are using to import. In this case, we are using actually Cloudera. So if you run who am I here, it is the OS user is Cloudera. So that's where it shows user Cloudera, and then it will try to create the directory, and this directory will be intermediary directory before copying data to Hive location. Okay, and most of the times you might run into this issue. There might be workaround for this, but most of the times you might run into this exception, in which case you have to delete the directory, like using Hadoop ss -rm -r user Cloudera departments. Okay, now it is deleted. Now let me run the Sqoop import. So these 4 parameters are related to the Hive. Hive is nothing but a logical database on top of HDFS. So here we are telling what is the database you want to load the data into. In this case, user Hive warehouse retail underscore ods.db is the actual Hive database. So we need to tell that information to Sqoop, and then Hive import is forcing that that Hive import is telling Sqoop that you have to do the Hive import, which means you have to copy data to Hive table from the intermediary directory which we have seen or which we have dropped just now. And then Hive overwrite is to tell the Sqoop import to replace the directory with the new data. Means to delete all the files under the directory and recreate them. And then Hive table is the actual table which you are trying to load into. Okay, it is still running. So because we ran overwrite, if we run the query again, we should see only 6 records. Okay, we should not see we should not see more than 6 records. If it is append, if you remove that, it will I think it will fail. If you remove that to overwrite, yeah, if you remove that overwrite, it will append actually. So you will see 12 records instead of 6 records because we are doing overwrite. Once the import is done, you will see only 6 records. And also we will run this. Let us see the properties of the file while the job is running. So if you see, the timestamp is saying 620. Once the job is done, we will see the timestamp, and you will see a different timestamp for sure. So now if you see, it has actually copied all the 4 files. Now let us see this command. What? Let me see the. Let me. Yeah, it says retail ods.db. Then why it is actually copying to this location? Let me see. Probably I might have ran the incorrect command. User Hive warehouse retail underscore ods.db. Yeah. loading data to table default dot departments. I'm not sure why it is loading into default dot departments. Okay, let me try this again. Let me see the parameters here. Probably that might. Hive home, Hive import. Okay, Hive home is, I didn't use it properly, so that is the reason why there is no need of this parameter at all. And here I have to tell the database name retail underscore ODS dot. Now let us wait until the job is done, then we will revalidate the location again. So this time it seems to be actually loading into the appropriate table. Let me run this command. Now you can see 4 files, and you do not see this file. It is already overwritten. So that is what overwrite is. And now you can actually validate the data also. Select star from departments, and you can see in the data as expected. And now the last command as part of the Sqoop import is to create the Hive table. So if the Hive table does not exist, if you want to create, then you can actually tell like this. So now if I say create Hive table, and if I give a table name which does not already exist, it will create a new table. If it already exists, then it will fail. So let me run this as well. Let me give a different table name. Departments underscore test. Okay, and before running this command, we have to run rm command again, because we are actually trying on the same table again and again. So for that reason, we have to run this command to delete this departments which is created by Sqoop import as part of the previous commands. Now if you run this command, after it is completed, it will create a departments underscore test, and we haven't prefixed with the database name, so it will create into a default database. So now if I go here and use default, and if I run show tables, you don't see departments underscore test. After the current import command is done, you will see the table here, departments underscore test. So now let us see the show tables. Import command is done, and you can see this department underscore test, and you can actually run the query also, and you can see all the 6 records. So that is about Sqoop import. Yeah, you have to, whenever you have a requirement to copy data from source system into a HDFS, then you have to use the Sqoop import. And depending upon the specific case, whether it is delta or whether it is a complete table load, or the size of the table, you have to think through all the things, and you have to come up with a solution. You have to play with these options that are documented as part of the Sqoop user guide, and then you have to finalize your Sqoop import command, and then you can include, you can embed in as part of the shell script, and you can schedule it to run the Sqoop import on regular basis. Being said that, we are done with the demo of Sqoop import. As part of the next session, next video, it will also be another demo, and we will be focusing on Sqoop export. So far we have seen Sqoop list databases, Sqoop list tables, Sqoop import all tables, and Sqoop import directly into HDFS, as well as into Hive HDFS associated with Hive tables. And next video we will see Sqoop export, and then we will move on to the next topic as part of the extract and load into data house that is being built using Hadoop ecosystem. I hope you are enjoying the series so far. If you like these videos, please like it. If you dislike, please dislike it, and make sure you put a comment what is the issue if you dislike, so that I can work on those and try to make your experience better.